Welcome to the Family Health with Dr. Lex YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Lex. Today we're talking with Doctor of Physical Therapy Lindsay McGraw on staying active and healthy while working from home. Let's welcome Dr. McGraw to the show. All right, we are here with Doctor of Physical Therapy Lindsay McGraw, who is coming to us from her home in Chapel Hill. She's a San Francisco native, but she is currently working virtually, seeing patients all over the country. And our topic and goal today is to go over some tips and tricks to stay healthy in your workplace, which is now your home office, how to incorporate movement and address your ergonomics to prevent injury, stay physically fit and active during these crazy times. So Lindsay, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
You summed it up excellent, better than I could have summed up what I do. My name is Lindsay McGraw. I am a doctor of physical therapy. I am a wellness expert and enthusiast, mom to two, and I own and run Marca Health and also Marca Moms, both of which are injury prevention and wellness focused companies. So, my goal after having worked for the last 15 years in, orthopedic settings is really that I want to help people stay fit and avoid injury. And now, especially that we are working from home or living at work is how I sometimes describe it. It is all the more important. So through Marca Health, I offer ergonomic virtual consults as well as workshops. I offer one-on-one physical therapy and wellness sessions. And then through Marca Moms, we offer some more mom-focused group support because ergonomics for moms is just as important. And so, we're really out here just trying to make sure that we create the space and we help people stay healthy and stay pain-free and productive.
Wonderful. I love that. We talk a lot about ergonomics in my osteopathic practice. And I always say we are the way we are because of the way we do the things we do. And I know ergonomics is totally your thing. So, and in particular, we have a lot of moms in our office, a lot of in our audience, and a lot of the kind of musculoskeletal pain, kind of structural issues that we suffer with come from our ergonomics surrounding how we handle our children. So if you can kind of let us know, what are some ways that we can keep our bodies safe while we're taking care of our kids?
Absolutely. And I think that a lot of people don't really think about being a mom as, being kind of like a high risk job. But, the bottom line comes down to it that anything that you're doing too much of is the potential to develop into a chronic injury and pain, right? Our bodies are meant to move. They're also inherently lazy and they're also really efficient. So if you tend to move a certain way a lot, doing a lot of repetitive motion, your body will say, hey, she seems to do this all the time. We'll just stay like this, or we'll start to adapt like this, right? Our tissues are constantly changing. Our skeleton is constantly changing. We will grow into those postures. And so, variety is really the best thing you can do. But so specifically what we're really looking at and what I look at when I'm working with people is understanding, what movements and what patterns are they doing all the time? And a mom, you got it, is especially that kind of thing, right? There's lots of lifting. There's lots of bending over. Breastfeeding is a big one that I work with a lot, so much hunching over. So really we're looking at how can, ergonomics is really just how can you set up your environment to better fit you? And so if you're doing things, like playing with your kids on the floor, trying to make sure maybe you sit up on a pillow or sit on a yoga block so that your hips are a little bit higher than your knees will help you avoid being so rounded in your low back, right? We do a lot of sitting now that we're sitting on the computer, then we're sitting watching TV, then we're sitting with my children that mine are small still. So I'm trying to constantly get to their size. And so we want to find ways where how can I maintain my natural body shape? How can my environment meet my body where it is?
So when it comes to sitting on the floor playing with your kids, carrying your kids on one hip or the other, depending on which hand you're dominant, can cause, all kinds of low back and hip and muscular spasm. What are some other kind of activities that we do in our regular life that could potentially cause a problem in our structural?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I'm always such a doomsdayer here because I'm always this is all the things that can go wrong. But that's why it's my job and your job to recognize those things. So again, anything that we're doing a lot of repetition of movements. Moms specifically, I see moms that have lots of wrist stuff. So how you're picking up your kids, especially if you've got little kids, I've got a 4-month-old. And so, often I'm kind of tweaking my wrist, like my wrist is going to do the work, recognizing that it's really going to be more about how you use your arms and how you support yourself and like your core, right? Big things that I see a lot of is, like hunching over, doing dishes at the sink, especially if you're a little bit taller, right? The most common stuff that I'm working with is going to be a lot of rounding forward. So, reaching down, doing things, really trying to take the strain out of the back and the neck. So, again, looking for specific examples, we talk about sitting up on something when you're sitting on the floor, like trying to sit on a yoga block or maybe even a couch cushion, you can pull down to the floor, making sure that you're actually kind of doing like a lunge, or we call like a golfer's pickup, when you're getting things off the floor, picking up toys, all the crap that's like everywhere in the house that I feel like I'm constantly tidying. Making sure that you're taking breaks too and switching between, sitting and working on the computer to switching to sitting and watching TV, while that's a break from working, that's not a break for your body. So, I like to think of it like we have so much, energy in our little like debit card bank, right? And you've got your $100 and everything you're doing is chipping away at that. And so we need to make sure we're also investing in the other side. So ergonomics and the injury prevention is super important, but you also want to make sure that you're doing the flip side and that you're taking time to invest in you. And that's where I think as the mom side of it is such the challenge and such the difficult thing. And how do we identify that stuff? And how do we really take those little moments? Like I will often, do hands and knees, like while I'm like on the floor with my kids. So I can kind of be doing some stretches and like stretching out my back. Ways to either sneak things in or, even just trying to like actually be like, guys, stop. Like I have to do something for me and blocking off that time. And so, with moms, a lot of it ends up being a lot of habit forming and a lot of, like reflection, kind of like how to get out of being in the muck. Cause we're really in the muck every day, as, we were talking about, the days just fly by. So yeah, yeah.
One of the things that you mentioned is kind of getting on the floor and doing some stretching. I found that making time for myself to do a dedicated 30 or 40-minute exercise routine without my kids being around, especially when they were much younger, was really difficult. So I started adding them into my little routine, doing some stretching and strengthening with them, like riding them on my legs or, doing some yoga poses with them. There are some great YouTube videos on kids yoga that we would do together that would kind of not only, be a good example and model for them to stay fit and active, but also would allow me to do it while they were still there. And in some forms that, sometimes they would provide some resistance for me or, and at the end, I always get a good, like walking on my back massage from my kids.
They
That's
definitely
probably
make
a no-no, but so one of the other things that
we were just laughing. I was trying to teach my 2-year-old how to massage. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And then they're like, at some point they're like, I'm going to get paid for this, right? I get $5 every time I massage your feet, right? So we're all working from home. A lot of us are working from home, and juggling that emotionally is obviously very taxing. Finding quiet space away from everything is very taxing. And a lot of us don't have a dedicated home office or a setup that is conducive to proper ergonomics for, unlike a workplace where you have a desk and a desk chair and everything is set up at the right height. So what are some ways that we can kind of adjust our environment in our homes while we're working from home to make sure that we're preventing injury while doing our work from home?
Absolutely. And it's a great question. And most of us, now that we're a year in, have started to create some spaces. I think the most important thing to recognize is that you do not have to go out and buy all the fancy things. You don't have to have a whole home office, like if you've got kids, creating the space, is really kind of the important thing. But either way, what I really hope and ask, my clients when we work with is creating 2 or 3 places where you feel you can set up a place to work. And again, you can only use your laptop. You can use a lot of household items. So there's always kind of three things that I ask people to focus on when they're wherever they are. And so if you can handle these three things, then you can set up a great work from home environment. So the first thing that I always want people to do is to try to keep their elbows in at their sides. So keeping your elbows underneath your shoulder really decreases the strain to your neck and your shoulder. And it'll also take strain off of your wrist. So all the carpal tunnel stuff. So for most of us, we're reaching all the time to get to our keyboard. And that's a lot more work to do. So bringing your keyboard closer or scooting yourself in is going to be something that's always important to do. The second thing is to make sure that your back is in neutral. We naturally have that little curve in our low back, the lumbar spine. And oftentimes, because we're reaching, we scoot ourselves forward in our chair so that we actually bring our elbows underneath us inadvertently. And then we don't have that back of the chair support. So I tell people always make sure if you're in a chair, whether it's an office chair, a kitchen chair, or even on the couch, because I'm totally okay with working on the couch sometimes, that you have your hips all the way at the back of the surface that you're at so that your spine can be flush with what you're sitting on. And then using a pillow or a lumbar support, right? Just shoving it kind of back there above your belt line is where you want it. So second thing. And then the third thing is that you want your feet and your legs to be supported. So feet should be on the floor or they should be on a block or something if that you need that extra support. Or if you're sitting on the couch with your legs out, you want something underneath your knees so that you've got that bend in your knees that takes a lot of the strain off of the hamstrings. So the idea with that, it's super vague, but is again, really it's about changing the environment to fit your body and not necessarily making your body fit your environment, which is what we do all the time. So I tell people if you can have a few different places that you work, if you're, sitting at the kitchen table with the chair and you've got your pillow, then maybe you switch to the couch. The other thing is, making sure that you are taking breaks or changing positions. I really tell people not to spend more than 60 minutes in one position, less if you're experiencing pain or problems. And a lot of that can be done either by using external cues, like if you need to use your phone timer, if you're someone that like really gets into what you're doing and like the world falls away. Yeah. Some of us like can barely get 60 minutes by ourselves anyways. You might be more fidgety. So fidgeting and moving is good. And that's what our body needs because again, like those injuries develop, a lot of those chronic injuries are usually happening because we're doing too much of something for too long. Right. So really trying to, I kind of joke, it's like kind of like coming up for air, like once an hour and kind of being like, how am I doing? How am I feeling? Like maybe at the least, I'm kind of like, oh, wait, I need to scoot myself back, like just shake out my shoulders. Okay, back in what I'm doing. At best, maybe I'm getting up and I'm going and getting a cup of tea, right? Or able to like, do a walk around the block. The other big thing is, actually taking kind of a look at what you need to set up your environment. So like maybe you're doing a phone call and you don't need to be sitting at your desk. Maybe you could take that on your headphones out walking or, you can stick, I like totally like will put my computer like up on one of those shelves and I'll stand and I can do a video call that way if I'm doing a video call. So, thinking a little bit outside the box. And that's part of what my job is to kind of be like, hey, this sounds crazy and you can say no, but like, what if you did this? Like, because I think we just get so lost. I think I got you back.
I gotcha. I can edit that out. Don't worry. That part out. Let me just make sure we're good.
The Wi-Fi is the other challenge.
Yeah. I'm in the middle of nowhere too. Okay. I think we're good. So just to kind of piggyback off two of the things that you were talking about, in a similar situation where you're sitting, and you want to make sure that your hips are centered and your hips are all the way back on your seat. I notice a lot of patients will come into my office, and when I do a structural exam, I notice that their hips are maybe uneven or unbalanced because of muscular spasm on one side. And one of the things that I notice is when we scoot into our car, a lot of times we fail to take that 2 seconds to recenter our hips. So we'll kind of like scoot in, and, your left hip closest to the door is elevated and raised. So similar, when you're in your car and when you're going for a drive, short or long drive, you want to make sure that your hips are centered. And we're driving people around all the time. We may be getting in and out of our car 10, 15 times a day.
Yeah. And that's a huge one, both for like you getting in and out of the car and also getting your kids in and out of the car, because that is a single direction all the time, right? Like we don't have that option to be like, oh, okay, like, and gosh, back when we were in offices, like way back in the day, like I noticed it too, like, you always would like, and you probably do it at home too, you always get out of your chair the same way, right? We always do things kind of, we have these patterns. And with the car though, I can't be like, hey, you know what you should do, Alexis? Like, why don't you just go get in the other side?
Yeah.
Like you can't do that. Or like same thing with the car seat. Like you have to twist right to get the car seat in. And so that is a huge thing that we're looking at. We're like, that's a movement that we can't necessarily balance out. Right. So you may need to invest a little bit of time in saying, like, okay, I know I'm constantly twisting right. And that's what's making this one side a little bit tight. Like, I need to do a few extra stretches, or again, like, how can we minimize that effect by either, like you said, taking the minute when you get in the car to kind of be like, hold on, like, let me just like,
adjust,
move that butt tissue around a little bit, or, same thing, like putting the kid in. So absolutely. And that's why, like, I joke with like injury prevention, it's like admitting you have a problem is the first step. Right. And it's like, just even identifying like, oh, like, you don't have to know how to fix it necessarily. That's what we're here for, is to help you with that. But, oftentimes, anytime I work with someone for the first time, and like, I don't know, like what you say is, I'm always like, okay, go home, marinate on this. Cause like, one, we probably threw a lot of information at you, and like, without fail, whether it's like at the end of that visit or like at the beginning of the next visit, like all this stuff comes out all of a sudden where they're like, oh, and I do this, and I noticed I do this. And like, and you're like, that's when I feel like so proud of like the people that I'm working with. Cause I'm like, yes, like that's it. Like that's that connecting that knowledge and knowing like, okay, this is how my body moves. Cause like, that's what fuels and fulfills me, right? Is like empowering other people to like, to take care of their health, and to like, know, like, I don't want people to come see me every single time something goes wrong and just be like, all right, like, I'm going to wait till she does that again, and then she'll be back in my office. Like, I want you to know, like, wow, I always do this. Or I favor this. Like, because those are those connections. It's going to really empower you to be able to like take care of your health and prevent injury in the long run.
Right. Yeah. So just kind
of don't sit crooked in the car. That was the whole point of that.
Yeah. No, but you're right. Encouraging people to to kind of just observe and, make notice of how you're doing the things that you do, and how that could potentially be contributing to a problem or preventing that problem from getting better. I have people who are doing all the stretches and, using all the rubs and still not getting better because that repetition is not being alleviated. That restriction is still there because they're still doing some particular pattern the same way that they've always been. The other thing that
you have to mention, kind of approach it two-way. Yeah,
exactly. And it is behavior modification, and it works.
Yeah.
It works.
And if you have a lot of pain or an injury, like we need to deal with that first. And that's the focus. And like, I think of it like the layers of the onion. And so when someone comes with back pain or hip pain from carrying their kid on one side too much, like, of course we want to make you feel better. But then we want to also be like, okay, how do we make sure that this isn't happening again? And a lot of why I started Marca Health and Marca Moms was to kind of say like, hey, let's just cut out that whole thing where you feel miserable and you're in pain, right? Let's just get to you before that happens. I think about it like getting to, going earlier in that healthcare continuum of saying like, hey, like, I'm not saying you will get back pain, but I know that as a mom, you're doing a lot of things. And as a doctor, I see people down this line, and like, let's talk about it now. How can I get to you now? And how can I make it, honestly, it's easier for all of us, right? It makes my job easier. It makes your job easier. And that's how, really that proactive prevention stuff, it's so hard. And of course, insurance doesn't want to spend money on it either. And most of us don't either, right? We're like, oh, why should I deal with something if it's not a problem yet? But, what we really know is like, this is going to save a lot of pain and misery in the long run.
Yeah. And if they come in and they address it earlier rather than later, it's easier to help on break those kind of bad habits that have formed. But you're right. We're so busy
Exactly.
going through the day and going through all of our responsibilities that to stop and take
Yeah.
time to pay attention to how we're doing things is just another thing we have to do. We
And
mentioned,
especially as mothers. Yeah.
yeah,
Especially as mothers, we don't prioritize ourselves. Like even when we're in pain, we won't even go to the doctor and deal with it,
right.
kind of thing. And so like that was a big thing for me in starting Marca Moms, was just like being shocked with, as I became a mother, how as a educated, empowered, financially viable, like woman who knew to ask for things in my care, I still didn't get a lot of care, and it
Yeah.
wasn't about me. And like there's this quote, and of course I forget it now, but you know, it was like, I forget who says it, but it's like the you know, the baby is a candy and the mother's the wrapper. And like once you
Yes.
have the baby, it's like they're just like, you're
Right.
good, right? You get one visit postpartum, right? And again, like I knew even before I had a problem, I was like, I want pelvic floor PT, I want massage, you know, I'm going to yoga, because I'm an entrepreneur who had the resources to do all those things, let alone someone who's like, I don't know, what should I do? And so like I really wanted to both create the space for moms to be like, you're important. Like you are the keystone of like this whole family,
Right.
oftentimes, you know, to both educate and to just create that space and that community, so that, you know, we can be like, oh yeah, that's okay. I'm allowed, God forbid, I'm allowed to spend 30 minutes not even doing yoga with my kid by myself. Like,
Yeah.
you know, so anyways, that's my spiel on that.
No, I love it. And it's so important. It's an important reminder to give ourselves permission to take care of ourselves. We've been talking in our group a lot about self-care lately and how so many of
Yeah.
us are burned out and how, you know, companies, employers will kind of
Hmm.
put burnout on you. Like, what is the cure for burnout?
Yeah.
Well, the cure is to,
Yeah.
get better workplace benefits and get, have childcare and improve the structure and improve the systems around us. But
Right.
they will encourage us or instruct us, you have to take care of yourself. And here are some wellness programs that you have to
Yeah.
do in your own time. But
Totally.
in reality, if you can get into the practice of self-care, it can
Hmm.
really not only help your physical well-being, but also your emotional well-being, your mental outlook, your social relationships, your connections, your productivity,
Yeah.
and your overall, stress management. So self-care, giving
Yeah.
us ourselves permission to take time out to care for our bodies, our minds, pursue our passions and our hobbies,
Hmm.
and in a meaningful way, whether that's, stretching, doing exercise, whether that's
Yeah.
taking a bath or giving yourself time to isolate,
Yeah.
away from all of your responsibilities, family, work, friends, and just focus on journaling or meditation or whatever it is that you like to do, painting,
Yeah.
giving yourself the permission to pursue what you love and take care of yourself. And
Watch trashy Netflix shows.
yes, and not defer your own
Yeah.
needs for others, which is what we're
Hmm.
just conditioned to do.
Yeah. Two things on that. One, my best friend's reading David Chang's biography, and I guess he says something in it like, he says the only form of acceptable addiction is workaholics. Like that's just, and I was like, wow, that actually sounds so accurate, right? Like we're cool. Like you can't be addicted to heroin, but like I'm
Yes.
addicted to work, and it's actually celebrated, right? Which is like a whole nother topic we could talk about.
Yes.
And secondarily, what I will say, and hopefully maybe can be something that can help your listeners, and of course also helps Marca Health. But one of the reasons Marca Health started, and one of the things that we really started with, is we actually work directly with companies. In that companies also now, some of them are starting to understand, like, hey, if we invest in our employees, not only are they going to not have injury and maybe lower our healthcare premiums, but we have research that shows that they are more productive, right? They are better. We're creating a community. They feel supported, right? Which of course, like tech companies started, and like I'm from the Bay Area, and this is where this all started. They started with like, how can we keep you in the office the most, right? Like, okay, we'll bring you food. We're going to bring a doctor on site, which is what they did, right? We're going to do all these things so that you have to be at work. But they're also starting to understand and realize like, oh, like these happy employees are really like the people that are coming back, right? Like, I think it was Netflix first, right? Started offering the year of maternity leave because they were like, it takes us so long to rehire moms when they leave the workforce. We'd rather give you a whole year of salary because that's cheaper than paying all the recruiters, the onboarding costs, all the things that are happening. So the good news, and again, this is where like I'm just here to help advocate and show that like we do work with companies and we help show them that it is more effective to invest in their employees in this way. And so I would say we're like split kind of like I'm even like 50-50 on a lot of my payers are actually businesses that are paying for their employees to do that stuff. So if you're interested or if you want your company to potentially, you know, support this, we have all the resources that we send because that's part of our job is to help, you know, sell our services, which is showing companies why actually paying for like having an ergonomist, having a physical therapist, having a doctor be able to come in helps them in the long run, keeping their employees more productive and not just, you know, being like a perk.
That's awesome. Have they maintained that relationship now that everybody's working from home when it's kind of more important than ever?
Yeah, you know, it's been interesting. And, you know, again, we could have a whole separate conversation on how we've pivoted our business in COVID because I used to do on-site. So I used to go into companies and be able to offer workshops. And I would say it's actually been really interesting because so many businesses are trying to find ways to still create community with their employees. And, you know, like, the last thing we want to do, I don't know about you guys, but like I've been through so many like ups and downs in COVID, but like kind of these like I'm just like zoomed out, right? I'm just like the last thing I want to do is go to like a happy hour on Zoom, you know, like and so a lot of businesses have been trying to find interesting ways to create community, right? And I work with a lot of operations people in like facilities or like workplace experience coordinators. So that's usually my contact, and they're often like, we don't know how people are doing. Like, you don't have the ability to just stop by their desk or be like, hey, what's going on? You know, like, it's like, they're literally like, hey, are you okay? And people are like, yeah, I'm fine, on Slack really quickly. And so the number one thing we always get requests for is just something movement based. And so any workshop that I do with a company, we're always like, you're up, you know, you can still be wearing, you know, like casual clothes, like we're up, we're moving, we're doing stuff. And it's actually been, I mean, something that people really enjoy doing. So, you know, a lot of companies do support one-on-one ergonomic sessions with the employees. And so I'm able to like check in and see how everyone's home office is doing. And then also we do a lot of workshops. So whether it's just a stretching workshop, whether it's talking about how to set those healthy habits, the things that we're talking about today, you know, just kind of helping kind of like group people together. And again, it's a way, especially now, for companies to kind of be like, hey, how is everyone doing at home? Or like, let's talk about this. Let's get up, move, and let's make sure that you know that, you know, we're here for you. Because we are very isolated in our homes these days.
Yeah, that's actually a great segue. So we're sitting at home, we're on our Zooms all day, or night in my case. And I'm not going to get up and walk around the block in the middle of the night while I'm on my night shift. Or I have 7 meetings back to back and I don't have time to necessarily do even a 10 or 15 minute stretch session. So are you able to walk me through some things that we could do right at our desk that would help us, you know, to stretch, get the blood flowing? I'll take my glasses off. Maybe we can like do a little.
Yeah. Let's do just a little like 5-minute, like, we won't even get up. We'll just stay sitting the whole time. So what I want you to do is make sure that you are scooted back, right? You've got your weight centered on your sit bones. So you feel those 2 bones in your hips, right?
Yep.
You feel them. They're equally weighted. You've got your feet landing on the floor. And you're just going to take a moment to feel the chair and to feel the ground supporting you. So you're like, oh, like, right? I'm centered. I'm supported. And what I want to start with is I just want you to just gently drop your chin to your chest and let your head relax. And as you do that, and you let that 8 to 10 pound bowling ball just to hang forward, you can feel that stretch in the back of the neck and in the back of the shoulders. And your neck can just take a break for a minute here.
Yeah, I really feel that in my upper back, actually.
I do too, which means I always do that on video calls too. I like lean forward. Right. And so even just this is like such a good pause. And then from here, just gently roll your left ear over to your left shoulder and feel that stretch in the right side of the neck. And then you're going to come back down through center and go over to the right side. So you're doing little semicircles. And again, we're just letting the head be the weight on your neck. And this is almost like its own little neck massage.
Yeah.
If I only have 30 seconds, doing this is like surprisingly effective. And again, like you said, oftentimes we're like, oh, it's not enough. I need like 40 minutes. But you really don't. And so
But
we'll
also,
just
if
go
you're
to
doing this,
side.
several times throughout the course of the day,
Mm-hmm.
it adds up.
It does. Exactly. And just like we talked about, it's that repetition that's wearing down our tissue and causing injury. These little bits can help take that edge off, right? So, and you're kind of bring your head back up, and then we'll just shrug the shoulders up, pull them back, and drop them down. And what I want you to be thinking about and feeling, if you're following along, is you're feeling your shoulder blades move against your rib cage. You're feeling the scapula, those angel wings kind of moving. These get so stuck and sticky, especially when we're rounding forward, right? And we'll do one more here. And then what I want you to do is I want you to reach both arms up. I want you to imagine you're climbing like the biggest rope ladder, and you're really reaching. And then as you pull the other side down, and don't be afraid to kind of twist and move and feel your sides waking up, right? Feel your mid back. Sometimes I get a crack or two with this. And like we've only done neck and upper back here. And we'll do like 2 more. We've got another minute. And we'll do 1 more here. And then the next thing I want you to do is you want to pretend you're giving me a nice big hug. So it's like we're pretending to do a Zoom hug. Yeah, you're in your little like ballet arms. I know. This is like, I feel like the epitome of COVID. I know. I'm always like, pretend like you're trying to hug someone with 6 feet between. And
I'm
then
getting my
pull
vaccine today,
back.
so I'm hoping that at some point I'll actually be able to hug someone.
Yeah. And then again, you're going to kind of round forward and go for that hug. So you're actually really creating that slouch posture. And then you're pulling back, trying to almost touch your elbows behind you. Yeah. And again, this is
kind of like a cat cow, but in
it is.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you can even get your hips into it a little bit, really slouching and arching. And again, this is so good just for circulation, right? And then we're going to do a little twist. So you're just going to look over your left shoulder. And my favorite cue for twisting is that when you breathe in, think about being really tall. And then as you breathe out is when you actually corkscrew twist, or I think about wringing out a dish towel. Because also in COVID, I feel like we do dishes all flipping day. Like we run the dishwasher at least once a day. It's kind of insane. So you're breathing in tall and you're exhaling, you're twisting. And we'll do that to the right side or whatever side you just did. You're inhaling nice and tall. And you're
grabbing my knee or grabbing the chair?
I like to put my left hand like on the outside of my right knee. Okay. But really think about exhaling and twisting using your own abs. Think about almost like you're trying to look over. And this is a nice example of like a counter strain where we're actually using a muscle, right? Engaging one muscle helps release another muscle. And I like this a lot because you're not going to injure yourself and you're not going to overstretch because you've got your muscle doing it, right? If I'm hanging from something and pulling, I can generate enough force to sometimes pull things. But if I'm doing it with my muscles and then just kind of using my arm to just kind of help stabilize, you're not going to overdo it. And then I'm going to do one more, my other favorite one that's the best sneaky one because you can do it without anyone seeing, but I'll put my my camera down, is you're going to cross one ankle over the opposite knee. You can show off your sweats and your slippers, right? Cross one ankle over the opposite knee, sit up really tall, and then you just ever so slightly start to hinge forward and you'll get a really good stretch in that outside of that cross knee, that outer hip, that piriformis muscle. You can do it on your Zoom calls. No one even knows, right?
I think we should start every meeting with this, kind of like, hey, we're going to do
the other thing that I really try to do, and it's hard when we do these like short sessions, but I really do try to end the meetings 5 minutes so that you switch to the other side while we keep doing this. So that you have 5 minutes to like get up and pee, go fill up your cup. Like it's so easy now to be like log off, log on.
Yes.
And like, so you don't need that 5 minutes to like go back to your desk or like get to the next conference room. And so like, and this is just something I know I'm not great with time management. But like I try as I do it, but also like, I've taken it from other companies that have just been so good about being like, okay, we're at time. We need to stop. Like we need to stop at least 3 minutes before the top of the hour or whatever, so that you do have that minute. And the trick though is making sure, like we said, habit wise, you're actually like doing a quick stretch or like getting up and not just being like, oh, quick, I can check my email before the next meeting.
Yes.
But I think we like forget that like we can be so much more productive, or that we're able to work all the time. And I think it's something that I like to talk about a lot with the habit side of things, but is like, because we are physically in the same space all day, like we need to create that mental and that emotional separation.
Yes.
Right. Like, I don't know if you're in an office or where, but it's like for some of us, that's like, okay, I'm closing the door. Right. Or like the habit of getting dressed, even if it's in our fancy sweats. Right. It's like, what are the things that are going to help us get in and out of work? Because again, it's just so easy to be like, oh, it's 10 p.m. I'll just open my laptop and do work. Right. Or something like that. My daughter, actually, she's 2.5, and it's challenging, especially I have a 2.5-year-old who does not understand that like I'm working because I'm still at home. So she actually escorts me to work now. Aww. That's how we like do it. So she takes my hand and she walks me into my bedroom and gives me a kiss and closes the door. And it's like, it's kind of a nice trip for me too, especially because I can't leave the room, because then she's like, oh, come play with me. So I'm like, I've got my coffee, I've got my mug, I've got my breast pump, and I'm like, I'm going to work, guys. And like, so anyway, so like, that's just like, it doesn't have to be fancy. It's just kind of like, what cue are you going to use maybe to shift in and out of work? Music, like that kind of thing. Just again, because it is so easy to be like, okay, like I'm literally in my bedroom working right now,
Yes.
So
and how to create work is all around you at all times. It's easy to just like, be there doing it all the time, not take the breaks, and not create it was already spaces.
Exactly. And it was already a big thing with smartphones. And I think like that's, like I'm definitely like a burnout survivor, I guess is a good word for it. And like, I remember struggling with like, well, my parents were able to work for the same company for so many years. How do they do that? And it was realizing even back then, just that I had a laptop I could take home. I had a smartphone where I could get work email.
Yes.
And I was still going to and from a clinic, like a health clinic, even more so now, of just that, like, it's always in our face. It's always accessible. And I think like that's, again, it's just a really big personal thing for me with, burnout, and especially with mom stuff, is like really how to help, people feel supported and not feel like they have to be addicted to work all the time or performing at the level that they see on social media. It's just such a tricky world. And that's why I love that you're making it real. I'm trying to make it real. Like, I'm excited for this, and I hope that it continues to kind of be the place, but I'm just as guilty of it all. And that's, at the end of the day, like I am my client, and that's how I know what they need,
Well, if one beautiful thing has come out of the pandemic, I think that a lot of people are doing some self-reflection. A lot of people are becoming more aware of what they need, both physically, mentally, career-wise. And I think that as there's a shift more towards focusing on improving overall health and being placed in the situation that we're in, where there essentially are no work boundaries, I think we are going to see kind of a really proactive movement come out of this, where we're going to start to say, hey, we're going to demand that we have time to take care of ourselves. We're going to announce that we are taking care of ourselves, and that we're going to create those boundaries, because
so true.
The time that we used to spend driving to work now could be replaced with working. Even that drive to work could be something where you could decompress, where you could listen to music. And that's
exactly, like those are those shifts of like, that was mentally. I have one client, and she like, they live in San Francisco. They ended up like basically building a little like garden shed in their backyard, and that's where she works. And even going to the garden shed wasn't far enough. So she now walks around her block and then goes in the gate. And so she's we're like, you need to get a commute.
Yes.
Like so she actually commutes, because she's like, you know what I miss? I miss walking to the train station, taking the underground. Like that was 30 minutes that I would like listen to a podcast and like shift into like my mental like place. And so that's something that like has been a successful habit for her. And again, that doesn't have to be what it is, but it's just that like, like we said, like, oh, it's so great. We don't have to spend 45 minutes in the car anymore, but also like, what are you missing out of that 45 minutes now?
Yes. So, and I love that your association with companies kind of really, really sheds light on what else companies can do to make their employees healthier. And I think a lot of companies are going to realize after this that they've been spending a lot of money on real estate that they didn't need to spend. And I think a lot of people will end up continuing to work from home. But I think it's going to be up to us, to help corporations and our employers realize that the money that you were spending on rent, some of that has to be invested back into us and our wellness. Yeah. And so I love what you're doing with companies. I love that you are empowering employers to make sure that they're investing in their employees in terms of health and wellness. There's extensive research in terms of productivity, overall work-life balance, work satisfaction, decreased rates of illness, decreased rates of anxiety, depression, suicide associated with positive workplace environment and feeling safe and having the opportunity to engage in health programs in the workplace. So I love that you're contributing to that and you're working towards making our environment at work more ergonomic, but also our living at work environment. Yeah, exactly. Also mentally more supportive and emotionally more supportive. Yeah. So Dr. Lindsay, where can my friends find you? How can we get in touch with you as a private client, as a corporation? Yeah. Where can we find all of your pearls of wisdom on social media? Let us know.
Absolutely. So best way is to follow us on Instagram. We're at Marka Health and also at Marka Moms. And websites are the same for both, markahealth.com, markamoms.com. Instagram's where we're constantly dropping knowledge. We have a monthly newsletter for both. And again, you are more than encouraged to subscribe to both. Marka Health tends to focus more on the working aspect. Okay. And Marka Moms tends to focus more on mom-related things. So, focusing on, we're starting a like a Mom Grove, a little mom group. I think it starts next week or the week after. And awesome. We're doing it free right now. It's just going to be an hour-long kind of like movement and then conversation. Awesome. We really focus a lot on the pre and postpartum, kind of that year before, year after area. But all moms are encouraged to join because as we know, our job is never done. But we're really here to support you. So encourage you to do that. And you can always reach out to me directly at just Lindsay, LINDSAY at markahealth.com. And we're, here to help, here to connect. I'm just as excited to go back to the office since, that's where I get to get my social interaction too. So
absolutely. I've missed seeing patients. My patients become my friends. So I've missed seeing
I know. Oh, same.
I'm so happy that you're here in Chapel Hill near me so that I can refer to you and see you myself. But yes. I know that my friends will enjoy all the content that I've been following now for a while, and including all the little tips and tricks that you give to help us make our home
awesome. Yeah. And we do all virtual, and then, post-pandemic, we do on-site both at companies. And then I also do like private medicine on site and maybe someday with Alexis down in Southern Village. But everything's virtual now. And the nice thing about it is it gives us a chance to really connect and help people all over the place. So that's been kind of fun for me, is definitely being able to I don't know. I'm sure we could have another conversation about it. Just getting to like learn about people, what they do. It's my favorite thing. I love the problem solving, and I love, just hearing about what people do, what they're interested in their jobs and stuff like that. So be my friend too, please.
No, I definitely think that there are bright sides that we should be focusing on, and having the ability to have services like yours brought to us virtually is definitely one of them. So thank you so much for being here, for sharing your knowledge and your information, for being part of a community, and for being part of the mission of just empowering women and moms to take care of themselves, body, mind, and soul. And I so look forward to working with you and talking to you again in the future.
I know. We're going to have that glass of wine soon.
Heck yeah. Thanks, Lindsay. Take care.
Thanks, Alexis.
Bye.
Bye.
For more information from Doctor of Physical Therapy Lindsay McGraw, you can check out her websites, markahealth.com and markamoms.com. You can also find her on Instagram and Facebook at Marka Health and at Marka Mom. You can also always find more information on my website, drlexlifestylemedicine.com. And as always, if you love the music like I do, check out therealmichaelvm.com/music. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time.